Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work and create, the Kumbameri people of the Yungambay Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Hello and welcome to A Nourished Woman, the podcast. I am your host, Raer. This is a conversational series created to guide women towards a more true, whole, fulfilling and joyful way of living. Together with some truly incredible guests, we embrace what connects us to our vitality and some of the ways that we can nourish our minds, bodies and soul. A nourished woman represents a return to wholeness and reclamation of our innate wisdom, our body's intelligence, our appetite for life, and our capacity for joy, play and pleasure. It's about moving beyond mere survival and embodying a nourishing and generative mode of living that is aligned with our values, our energy, our desires, and honours the season of life we are in. Thank you for being here. Enjoy. Hello, welcome back to season 1 of A Nourished Woman, the podcast, and happy 2024. I hope you had a nourishing and well-rested holiday period. I am thrilled to be back with you all and to be sharing another juicy conversation. This week, I am joined by my very good friend, Matt DeFina. Matt is a psychologist, coach, facilitator, and the founder of Another Way, where he guides purpose-driven professionals, entrepreneurs and change makers to build meaningful lives and careers without burning out. I want to read something from his website that I love. It's the catalyst behind him starting Another Way. Exhausted and feeling far from complete, I couldn't continue pretending that everything was okay. I couldn't envision spending another 50 years on an endless treadmill, constantly striving to prove my worth. In that moment, I made a decision that changed my life. I chose never to abandon myself again. I embraced authenticity and vowed to always act from a place of service to myself and others. I started questioning everything I thought I knew and discovered that much of it simply wasn't true. I embarked on a journey to find another way, a path that would bring genuine fulfillment, richness, and meaning. No more pretending or conforming to societal expectations. I surrounded myself with kindred spirits who also sought truth and authenticity and demanded the same of me. Now I'm here, eager to work with individuals and groups who share the same desire for an extraordinary life. We first met in 2010 while both in the Greek islands and instantly connected. We have been friends ever since, drifting in and out of each other's lives. I count him as one of the biggest supports in my life, especially over the past 12 months. Matt is a very special human, and I am thrilled to have him on the podcast this season. I plan on having him back to go even deeper on some topics that we discussed and some that we didn't quite get to in season 2. This chat does have a slightly different flavour to it. Ultimately, it is a conversation between friends. I am sure that something in our chat is going to resonate with you. I hope that you enjoy hearing some of the things that we discuss from a man's perspective. I think it is incredibly important to hear from our beautiful men as well. In our conversation, we discuss what it means to be truly authentic, the challenges of finding our purpose, Matt's catalyst for change, what it takes to go all in, navigating rock bottoms, his choice to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, masculinity and communicating as a man, and so much more. I hope you enjoy. So, my dear friend Matt, how would you describe the current season of life that you are living in?
Oh, that's such a good question to start with.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually reflecting on this yesterday because last year felt like breakdown and dismantling of so much of what I had. And this year has felt more like transformation. And I thought last year was the transformation, but it turns out it wasn't. It was this year. And we can talk in a year's time and see what this year really was. I'm not sure. I'll only know in hindsight. But yeah, I'd say the season of life I'm in at the moment is, it's sort of like I've been through this autumn winter period, and I'm hopeful, it feels that I'm moving into a spring period where things are going to start to bloom and blossom. But rebirth, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what season it feels like I'm in at the moment.
I love that. And just the other day, we were sending each other some voice messages back and forth, and I said to you, what is most alive for you at the moment? And I haven't included that question in any other conversations, but I wanted to include it in this one because I feel like it's really relevant.
Is that you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Great. It's funny because, side note, Meeks and I decided many months ago we'd just send each other indulgently long voice notes because it's great to just get the full download and not be cut short. So I feel very much like us sitting on a podcast is like just mirroring our WhatsApp life as well. It's just the same thing. So yeah, I think what's alive for me at the moment is I've really been leaning into this idea of authenticity and what does it mean to be really authentic. And have been moving through a lot of letting go of, I guess, belief systems, outdated patterns that have been holding me back from being authentic. And then even noticing, I've been traveling for almost 3 months now. And the best part about that, one of the best parts, is meeting so many new people. And they don't know me from a bar of soap. So, it's I'm the barometer of whether I'm being authentic or not. And it's been really fun to kind of play with that.
Yeah.
So I think authenticity has been something that's been really alive. And then also this idea of purpose. I've noticed, even on a really simple level, when I wake up in the morning and I have a really clear purpose, I've got reason to get out of bed, get shit done, and then get moving. But if I don't have that purpose during my mornings, then sometimes I really lack the energy to even get out of bed. And so I've been watching that play out on a small scale level, but also like a big picture level. And thankfully, I feel like more at a time now where I'm connecting more to my purpose. And so I'm getting more energy back and I'm getting more excited. But I've been relating to this process of purposes rather than like creating it or finding it as a process of shedding away layers to reveal it. And that's been quite a challenging process, but quite a rewarding one. So yeah, I think those are the two things that most love. And then I guess the last part is, I've mentioned it already, but I've been traveling in Africa and Tanzania and in the USA for nearly 3 months. I'm about to fly back to Australia next week. But this has been a big transition period in my life and a big trip, and the first time I've traveled since COVID and lockdowns. So it's also been this really expansive period, and a lot of the experiences I've had, I was hoping for these blissful moments of realization and ecstasy and but it's actually been like really challenging. And I think I haven't really desired it, but it's come for me anyway. I think that I had this realization when I was in Africa. Yeah, I was like looking in the mirror in Africa, having just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I had this feeling, I was like, I've come all the way to Africa and I still can't run away from myself. Okay, I guess I've got to just do the work on this stuff, otherwise it's going to keep following me around. So yeah, there's a couple of things that are alive for me at the moment.
All very big. We're definitely going to touch on authenticity and go a little bit deeper in that. But with what you said on purpose, do you think that has, because I love what you said about shedding the layers, because I think quite often, and I hear a lot of people say this, right? It's, trying to figure out what their purpose is and trying to find it, as you said, as opposed to shedding the stories or the things that don't belong to us in order to reveal it. I think that's so relevant. Do you think, because you said bigger picture, but even on a day-to-day level with purpose, do you think it's partly been because you've been traveling and there's nowhere in particular you needed to be or anything you needed to do? Or why is that so alive, do you think?
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, I mean, I've been trying to find my purpose for years because so often I've landed on something or people have asked me, what's your purpose? And I'm like, I don't know. I can give you words, but I don't actually feel connected to it or attached to them. It's not embodied. And I think it, to some extent, everyone's purpose comes down to the same thing, which is to help other people. But how we do that is our unique expression. So I'm like, okay, I want to help people, but I don't know how I'm helping them. And I think that's been like, honestly, I know you're a human design nerd, just like I am. Like when I'm not in alignment, it's frustration's my number one sign. I'm a manifesting generator. So I've learned to go, okay, I'm frustrated. Obviously, I'm not in alignment here. I'm not doing what I really meant to be doing. How do I need to shift that? And so I think purpose has become this one thing where, especially like the way I relate to it as a man is, if I don't have my purpose, and I think this is also speaks to the masculine, and anyone doesn't have to be a man, it's everyone. You know, the masculine desires drive, purpose, creation, boundaries, direction, and that's how we organize our resources, that's how we organize our time, and that's how we get things done. And if we don't have the masculine, or we don't have a healthy relationship with it, then we end up in this flowy energy of more of the feminine, or we end up in between. And so nothing happens. And you can only be in one of those poles for so long, or in between, until you go a little bit crazy and you're like, I kind of need a bit of balance here. So I think purpose has been alive because I have felt unexpressed as a man in contributing meaningfully to community or business. And I've been almost so committed to shedding. I'm like, I'm willing to die 1,000 times just to get back to this purpose or whatever it is, because life feels really shallow without it.
Do you think it also reveals itself from, I don't know, taking action as well? Like, do you know what I mean? Like actually starting to do something to move in that direction, you know, and let it reveal itself that way as well?
Yeah, I've tried the like sitting. I haven't actually tried sitting in a cave, but
No.
I've like metaphorically tried it through different practices like meditation. And yes, 100%. I think like this is just how nature works, right? We take action, we get feedback, and then we realign, and then we go again. So yeah, definitely taking action is important. And then, I mean, that's the challenge I find with myself or people I've worked with when they're stuck, because then there's some pattern that's trying to stop them from taking action for fear of failure, fear of success, whatever it is. And so then they're not learning, and then they're not getting like feedback from their environment. And then they get more frustrated because they're more stuck, and then they're just in this rut. So yeah, I think it reveals itself. And I also think purpose changes over time. And that's the other thing it's like, you don't just find your purpose and that's it, full stop, done for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's ever evolving, right? Yeah, it depends on where you're at, because you're ever evolving as well.
I love that. And I think too, a lot of people tie purpose specifically to what they do as their kind of professional expression as well, which I don't know, I think it can be more than that and different from that. And maybe you get, you know, a few at any one time.
Yeah. Classic Manny-Gen. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think like to go a layer deeper with purpose, and a layer deeper maybe even with the masculine, maybe it's the feminine as well. I haven't actually felt through this too much, but is to like we want to, I think we genuinely think we want to give ourselves to the world, and we want to know how to give in a meaningful way. And I've been doing a bit more research around recently. What are the regrets of the dying? You know, the 5 regrets of the dying, which is a book that was written ages ago. It's sort of doing the rounds again in social media. And the number one regret was, I wish I'd lived a life true to myself. And so I feel like what we deeply desire is, and maybe this is just, again, the Manny-Gen in me talking, is to have given all of ourselves in a way that is aligned with our gifts, you know, similar to the Ikigai concept, with our gifts and our purpose and what the world truly needs. And then we can go to bed fully peaceful and at rest.
Yeah.
But it has to reveal itself, and I feel like that's also part of the journey. You can't push this. You kind of have to allow it to unfold, and yeah, there's just like there's so much paradox in the whole process, and
Yeah.
like I know for you, it's taken you time and taken you choices and taken you action to get to a point where you're like even remotely close to soul purpose kind of level work, and it's been the same for me as well.
Absolutely. And again, like, agree that it's constantly evolving. So I think even what I considered, like when you were reflecting on the season of life you're in, and like even when I think about a month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, it's so different what I was thinking at the time, you know? Yeah. So
And the
how,
secret,
no,
oh,
you
sorry.
go. No,
The
you go.
secret I've learned with this is, and this has been a tough one to learn, but it's like I can only work with where I'm at in my process right now. And the longer that I fight not wanting to be where I'm at in my process, the longer it's going to take me to actually move through whatever I'm moving through. And there's just been so many layers of self-acceptance I've had to go, and self-judgment I've had to let go of to be in surrender to that. So for example, I was just at Burning Man, and I'm like 2-3 days into this mind-blowing experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've done a lot of work. I feel really prepared for this. And then I just was not prepared in terms of what the spectacle of it is. And I got to day 3, and I'm like, I want to be out having fun and connecting with people. And then I was exhausted. I'm like, I'm not exhausted because I'm tired. I'm exhausted because I'm disconnected from myself. Why am I disconnected from myself? Oh, I'm fighting the natural stage where I'm at in my process, which was like, 1, I feel disconnected from myself. 2, I feel disconnected from the people around me. I feel lonely. 3, I feel overwhelmed. But also 4, like the main one was like, oh, I've got a whole bunch of grief that's sitting here that I have not processed from the last couple of years. And okay, what would it feel like if I leant into the grief and didn't go to that techno dance floor instead? And as it turns out, I kind of got to do both, but I had a couple of hours just hanging out in our RV going, all right, this is just where I'm at. This is where I'm at right now. And I don't know what's going to come next, but I've got to surrender to this part. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
really important bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the bit I think we don't allow, right? Because it doesn't feel good, doesn't feel comfortable to sit with grief or any kind of big feelings like that. And like I would have to agree that I've been in a similar circumstance. I feel like over the last few years, you kind of have that awakening, so to speak. And it's like one thing leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing. And then you feel different, but there's so many things that haven't actually had a chance to like properly land and integrate. So, yeah. And I feel like probably because of the way our culture moves, we do that a lot. We kind of move from the next thing to the next thing and don't really allow what is actually there to be there.
Exactly. And, you know, to bring a Vedic view into this, which is another part of my life, and also like we're talking about seasons, you know, the Vedic view is there's 3 cycles that you're always moving through. You know, it's either death, maintenance, or rebirth. And then the same thing is with the rites of passage framework, which is what I've used for years with the teenage boys. And that is separation, transformation, reintegration. So the longer that we fight being in the moving into the separation, into the transformation, or moving from the maintenance into the death, the more that we prolong this uncomfortable period. And it's like kind of what you said. It's like, are you willing to sit in the discomfort of it and then go, okay, I'm in this process now. But the most important thing when it comes to the rites of passage framework as well is, you know, I'm sure you've heard this metaphor and many other people have heard it as well. You know, when a caterpillar changes from a caterpillar to a butterfly, it goes into its cocoon. The cocoon is necessary as this container. Now, the container has to be sealed shut. If you open a cocoon mid-transformation into caterpillar, it's neither a caterpillar anymore or a butterfly. So it's just mush. And when we're in these transitional periods of our lives or transformational periods of our life, that's how I feel. I'm like, I'm in mush. Except I think some of this rites of passage we've been moving through is like been years up till now. And we're only just coming to this reintegration period. And when we're in the transformation stage of the rite of passage, there's a few really important things to stay with. And by the way, I'm saying this for myself as much as I'm saying it for you and everyone else listening, because I'm having to remember
We're in
this
it
stuff for
too.
myself. We're in it too. It's like one of the things I really love about one of my mentors who taught me how to use this framework, Anna Rubinstein. It was the most important thing when you're going through a rite of passage and when you're in the mush is to ask yourself questions or to ask each other questions. What's important to you? What do you want to let go of? What do you want to bring in? And not to need to solve it. And when you try to solve it, you kind of steal yourself away from the opportunity to actually get the most out of that growth period. But of course, we want to get out of it instinctively because it's uncomfortable. So
Yes,
yeah, that's where the gold is. But
it
of
is.
course, it's once we're in it, we're like, oh, I don't want this. Yeah, I don't want to grow. Yeah, yeah, I want to grow, but without the discomfort. Is that possible?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love for you to touch on kind of what the catalyst for this is. I mean, obviously with us being friends, I know a little bit about your story, but I would love to know in your words, because I know that, you know, a few years ago you were living a very different life or headed in a very different direction. So I would love for you to talk about that and kind of what it was that changed the trajectory of your life, so to speak.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you'd met me 3 years ago, I didn't have a beard, that's for sure. And my haircut was always very short back and sides and neat and tidy. I weighed about 10, 15 kilos less because I was doing lots of training and triathlons. I was, I guess, doing what I thought I was meant to do, but not really what I deeply knew I wanted to be doing. But I also wasn't really aware that that's where I was at. I just knew in some way I wasn't fully satisfied. So I was living a pretty, I guess, standard life, you could say. I was in a really great relationship. I was in a good job. I was sort of looking down the path of turning 30 and was looking at the white picket fence lifestyle. And I just remember this distinct feeling of like, I may as well die. I don't know if I want that. And it feels like I'm saying to my soul on some level, sorry, buddy, it's going to be the next lifetime that we like fully express our truth or fully express ourselves. And I'm lucky enough that I'm in a really beautiful community where we run retreats, we go on retreats, we create retreats, like we kind of just do it for fun. And I then went on a retreat just before I turned 30. And on that retreat, had time and space to really reflect on where I was at in my life. And I remember having this experience of feeling for the first time really safe, really grounded. And this voice popped into my head and just said to me, stop running, slow down. And what would it feel like if you lived from love and not fear, and abundance and not scarcity? And that was really scary because the implication of that shift I knew was really big intuitively. And sure enough, I made the shift. I made the choice to live from that place of love, and I guess also made the choice to never abandon my true, authentic self again. And then the next day I realized I'm not in the right relationship. I'm not meant to be going back into corporate, and returned back to Melbourne and, you know, ended that relationship. Called this leadership consulting firm and said, I'm really sorry, but I've had an experience and I realized it's not in alignment anymore. And that was 2.5 years ago. So in that period since, it's been a really deep healing journey. I've gone deep on internal family systems therapy, Vedic meditation, plant medicine, and have really leaned into exploring myself and trying to work out what's true. And eventually got to the point at the start of this year where, yeah, I had another relationship breakup that was really challenging, more challenging than the earlier one. And then decided to leave my charity job working for the Man Cave and had this intuitive message that said to me, you need to start this business another way. And it's going to be tough, but it's like you need to do it. And I remember I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And I remember sitting there going, okay, I'm willing to lose everything if this is what it's required to grow this. And that's kind of what's happened. Everything that was not meant to be in my life has either been taken away, doors closed. So, but at the same time, all these other amazing doors have opened up. So what's nice now is, how my life looks is different, but how I feel in my body is so different. I feel relaxed, I feel calm, I feel grounded, I feel able to connect with people. I feel like I'm, living the life I'm meant to live. And like, if my voice has changed, I actually hear my voice now, go, oh, that actually sounds like me. I listen back to old videos, I'm like, who was that person? So it's been a big journey and a lot of letting go. And it's been, in some ways, really easy to make some of the choices I've made, but it's also been really challenging.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe it's been simple, but challenging. Yeah.
Like all good things.
Like all good things. Simple, challenging, always worth it.
It's totally always worth it. Thank you for sharing that. I know that I want you to speak into another way. I feel like, something that you've mentioned to me with another way is this concept of going all in, which it sounds like in what you just said, that's exactly what you did. But what do you think it takes, what holds people back from doing that, from going all in on themselves?
Oh, that is a good question. I mean, there's my personal experience with that. There's what I've observed with clients. There's the philosophical answer. I think, the number one thing that holds people back from going all in, if I was to, I'd try and cut it back to one thing, is it's this fear of not being loved or accepted for who you truly are. And there's this idea that Gabor Mate has that I really like. He's an amazing trauma-informed researcher, and he talks about this idea of trading authenticity for attachment in our early years. And we do that because we want to get our needs met and get love and support, and we do that as a child, but we also then do that as a teenage self, and then we even carry that into young adult self. And if we don't evolve out of these levels of consciousness or developmental selves, then we stay stuck in those belief systems. And I think one of the reasons people are afraid to go all in on themselves is, one, the dreams that they had for their lives that they believed is what they're here to do were dismissed by someone around them, made to feel like it wasn't what you're meant to do. You need to grow up and get a proper job. Or, they had a challenging experience at school where maybe they did actually engage in, not just in school, but at any stage of life, they did actually engage in what felt like their soul's work. And it wasn't recognized, supported by the people around them. And so they just dismissed it. And in dismissing that, they abandoned their true self, their authentic self, and traded that for just fitting in. But this is what I see now. And I was having a conversation with a potential client last night at an event I was at. And he's a really successful person on the outside. He's a world-renowned musician. And, he's like, I just feel like I'm so stuck in a rut. And I'm looking at this guy going, this, he's had an amazing career. He's still having an amazing career. And he feels like he's stuck in a rut. And what it came down to for him was there's just some part of him that feels unresolved with the path he's currently on. But the possibility of truly listening to that inner voice is so scary, because what if it says XYZ and then XYZ? And that's what happens, is like our mind and everything else kicks in, trying to protect us from loss and everything else that it's afraid might happen. And when you're in that space, in my experience, then you're living in a place of fear and you're trying to just keep everything around you so you don't, have to let go of things. But when you go all in, and it's kind of, it's this big commitment to self, you don't just do it once and then it's done. Like it's every single day. And I
Yes.
know you've been through this with your business as well, and many other things in your life. And you know, the first time I went all in on myself, at least what it felt like in the last few years, I remember, I remember, I was like, I was on a men's retreat. I'm just gonna show all my feelings and feel it all, and like, not have any shame around how I show up anymore. And it was this powerful experience. And I got to the bottom of this, what felt like the bottom. Okay, I guess I'm done. Like this is it. I've chosen in this lifetime. This is great. What now? And then this voice came in. It was just like, oh, you just keep choosing. Like that's it.
That's it.
That's all there is at the bottom. That doesn't stop. You just keep falling and just keep choosing.
Yeah. And sometimes you won't. Sometimes you won't necessarily make the right choice either. And you'll get a little wobbly at times. And it's just a way of kind of reminding you that, it is a constant exercise to, keep choosing you and your truest expression over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. And to remove the judgment from the journey, and to know and feel that, right or wrong choice actually doesn't exist either. It's just choice.
No. Yes.
And that's also the scary part. If you take away right or wrong from a choice, think about, for anyone listening, / you and I, you got a choice right now. I had choices to make today that were challenging. Like, I don't have a right or wrong yardstick on this. So I just have to make a choice, but there are consequences for those choices.
Yes.
And it's like, those are the things you have to live with. And that's why I think making powerful choices is so scary. But what's more scary, just to dial it up even more, is not making choices from an empowered place at all, and then sitting in the victim, because then it's this realization of, oh, I'm not even making choices myself. Well, I'm a rudderless ship, and that's not a really a fun place to live life from, I don't think.
No. And I think we like, I've experienced this too. I think we want somebody to say, this is the way. This is the choice you should make. That's the easiest thing, right? It's like, just tell me. But that's not how it works, unfortunately.
No. And we had this running joke while we've been here traveling around in the US with the RV, and my friend Josh, who I've been driving with, he had one of my business cards up on the dashboard, which I thought was the sweetest thing. And every time he's been driving around the RV and trying to find the right streets while we traverse America, he's like, he taps my business card. He's like, there's always another way. Except we then had this moment where we had to go down this really steep hill, and we were trying to find the right road to go down. And eventually I'm on the maps, he's driving, it's 10 o'clock at night. We're trying to get to this RV park. And we get to this road, and I looked at him and I was like, Josh, there's always another way until there is no other way. I was like, dude, this is the road. You're going to have to make it work. Yeah. And this is it. And it was like this beautiful thing of almost been feeling through this recently. The power of a choiceless choice is a really powerful thing. Like, I honestly don't feel like I had a choice with some of the stuff that I've chosen this year. I'm like, there's no other way. Like, if I choose another way, I just know it's not the true path. So, all right, I guess I'm just going to have to let go of whatever else is required to go this way now. So, yeah.
Yeah. I remember hearing something too about like the struggle we have with indecisiveness is more in the knowing what it is we should do or we could do in this moment and actually doing it. It's like in that space between actually knowing what it is and then actually doing it,
Yeah. And I think it comes back to what you said earlier. It's like the action piece, because like you can entertain ideas until the cows come home, and you can entertain theories, but it's like, what are you choosing now, and how are you going to show up now? And that's really where you actually put your chips on the table. Yeah. To build on one of the many metaphors we've got running. Like, when the cards are dealt, where are you actually going to put your chips? And eventually you have to choose. And if you don't actually play your chips, you're not going to make any money. No. And so you need to actually invest in some way or another. But I think that's the challenge when you get stuck in a rut or in feeling like you're playing more of a conservative style, then the idea of investing time, energy, or resources into things becomes scary. And so
Yeah.
there can be like these walls that get built up, and then, or you've kind of just protecting yourself, but you're also not available to anything else. I don't know, maybe this conversation's gone too esoteric and philosophical, but I feel like these ideas are important.
Well, how do you think we make powerful choices for ourselves? Like, what does it take?
Great question. I think this is one of the secrets to life. It's all comes down to a powerful choice every day, full of powerful choices, or every day full of choices, whether they're powerful or not. I think the first thing is recognizing a really important truth. At least this feels true for me, which is that you have complete responsibility for what you choose in your life. Now, the caveat to that is naturally we all have different stories. We all have different journeys and backgrounds. And so, of course, our decision-making process might be hindered by trauma or our current situation. Like, it's obviously not always an open field. But the first thing is you have complete responsibility for every choice you make. Realizing that and embodying that, when I went through that process and obviously still continue to, it can be a physically really uncomfortable experience to go, oh, I created this. And now I have the choice about what I create next. Because, when you are your own boss like we are now, well, every day there's this mirror up of like, what are you going to choose today? It's different when you're an employee and you kind of can get told what to do, or you fit in with everyone else around you. So I feel like that's the first step. And then the second thing for me, which has been probably the most powerful part beyond that, has been getting out of my mind and into my body, and then connecting to my body and my gut, my heart, my intuition, and, regulating my nervous system, connecting with these parts of me, making sure my inner world feels safe and like I'm showing up for them. And then, I know the early days when I was being trained in some of this stuff, it was ask your gut. The gut is now known in scientific research as the second brain. And the gut is, I think, where we can access really infinite wisdom. So the gut will just ping and say, do this. But sometimes the rest of you kind of has to catch up with what your gut's just said. So I think a lot of it actually comes down to really tuning in with your body and feeling into the part of your body where it feels like you can access real truth and loving awareness, as opposed to making a decision that's more of a fight, flight, freeze response, unless that's necessary. And then you're acting just out of this adrenaline fueled state, and you just never quite arrive at the point where you want to get to.
No. And I feel like if you're in that state too, you're not necessarily going to be able to make choices that are aligned, because you're like hypervigilant and,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad you said that word aligned, because, one of the first things I do with people I work with is like, what are we working towards? What's your vision for the future, and what is uniquely your vision for the future? And it's actually amazing. I went through this experience myself as I tried to create my own vision. It's amazing how much unworthiness comes up in the process of creating a vision for yourself. Because of course, all these voices like, you don't deserve that, you're not allowed that, wherever it's come from. And so the first thing is, well, what are we actually working towards? What's your vision for the future? Whatever that involves. It actually doesn't matter in the scheme of things for me. All that matters is that it feels true for you. And then the second thing is, how do you want to get there? So what are the values that you want to bring into your life that are aligned with how you want to live your life? Because we've got a vision, which we're probably never going to reach, but that's just there to give us a North Star to make choices. Then we've got our values around how we want to live our life. And then the next part is, well, I'm going to make X choice because of my vision and my values. But then also, ideally, you're making it from an embodied place in that very moment. And so then when we've got some of those things in place, then we can actually make a choice that's powerful. But if it's not, you're kind of just swinging a pinata, trying to make the right choice without any reference point that comes from yourself.
I love that you brought up values, because that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. because I feel like it's the key to any choice you make ever. And actually
Yeah.
connecting, with what our values truly are and not necessarily somebody else's version. And so what are yours? And how do we make contact with what our truest values actually are?
Yeah, and before I answer, I also like, because I've known you for a while now, don't want to count the years because it reminds me how old I am.
How old you are.
But we're both aged the same amount of years in this time, okay?
I know, it's just that I'm older.
Um, uh, you've made a lot of choices in your life since I've known you that have been very, very values driven and very counter to the people you've been around. So yeah, you've actually been a role model for me around how you've made choices consistently and gone, no, this feels aligned. I'm like, well, Mix, like she's really sticking to her guns. It's been great to witness.
Thank you. It's taken a lot of work.
Yeah, that's okay.
It wasn't always the case.
No, yeah. So before I tell you what mine are, it's taken me 2 years, and I'm not joking. 2 years I've probably got in my iPhone 30 different versions of my values in the last 2 years. Because
Yeah.
I'd write, I'm like, that's my values. Oh, that doesn't feel true. Oh, okay, we'll try and live by that. And then all these frameworks and different things. And what I'm trying to work out right now, it's actually another thing that's alive, is how do I, as quickly as possible, help someone connect to their vision, their values, and their purpose so that we can, as quickly as possible, help them express their true self and they can live a fulfilling life. Like that would be a dream. And that would be something I would have loved a few years ago as well. The values piece, I think, is it needs to be connected to there's some key questions I've asked myself. What do I really care about? And care for me is connected to heart. What do I really care about? And if I really care about, fairness or equality or, love, whatever it is, there's something about the word care for me that taps into the heart. And the heart for me is the emotional center in that way. So it's a real leader for us, for all of us. The second thing is, what am I willing to defend or die for? What will I jump in front of a metaphorical car for to protect? And therefore, what's something that I'm really fiercely passionate about? All words that, again, I associate with the heart. So mine have only just landed in a few weeks ago. And it was after Burning Man, actually, which was one of the most expansive and challenging weeks of my whole life, which is there's 4. Authenticity, which for me is like just to be real. Is it authentic? Are you authentic? Am I authentic? Can I touch it and feel it and go, yeah, that's real. I trust that. The second one is integrity, which for me is about really consistent, aligned action. Saying what I'm going to do, I'm going to do. And this is the one I've had to work through as well. Just being in communication with someone if I can't actually follow through on what I said. And not committing to stuff in the moment until I know that I can really give a yes. And so, I used to say yes to way too much because of, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm actually not going to give you my yes until I know I really can give you a yes. So I have more patience now with that. And so integrity's been a really important one. And integrity and authenticity for me are really strongly connected.
Yeah.
It's, are you being true to yourself? And really integrity, I can't remember what the root of the word is, but it very much goes back to this idea of wholeness. Kindness is the third one. Kindness for me is pretty self-explanatory, but I think the way I relate to it is when I was younger, I would other people. I would separate myself from people. I would put myself on the social hierarchy of where I'm at, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's true. And I felt this othering happening, and I didn't really like it, but I didn't know what to do with it, and I was stuck in this world of comparison. So now, having been in America, traveling around and meeting all these different characters, one of my daily practices is to see someone and just to see them as a reflection of myself and go, well,
Mm.
I could just as easily be that person. And the irony of othering is, in the process of othering, we think that we're better than someone, and in simply doing that act, not that there is a hierarchy, but we, put ourselves
Mm.
really, I think, below that person. We're not giving them credit. So kindness is the third. And
Mm.
the fourth is passion.
Mm.
And passion for me is important because, I spent years of being really stuck and frozen in my body. There were a few years ago when I started this journey, I was in my body. I'm like, I can't even feel myself. You
Mm.
ask me how I feel right now. I consider myself pretty emotionally intelligent. I could tell you how I feel, but I'm not feeling that feeling in my body. I just feel frozen. And then over New Year's and through some workshops and some space held by friends, I started to crack open my heart again. I didn't realize how protected it was. And then I realized, actually, whoa, I'm so scared of being hurt and all these different emotions coming through. And eventually got to the point of going, well, if I'm not fully feeling life, what's the point? Like, that's what we're here for. So passion for me is like this fire energy that
Mm.
comes through and goes, this is what I care about. This is who I am. This is what I love. This is what I do. This is what I bring. And when we have passion, which for me has a real fire energy to it, like things happen and
Mm.
conversations are better. Life is better. And yeah, it's taken a while and it's nice. It's honestly nice for you to ask me that question and go, I actually have an answer for that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like I have to remember them or perform it. It's like, oh, no, this is what they feel like right now. And they will change, of course. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm at.
Mm. I love that. I love those a lot. Like writing
Thanks.
little notes down as I go. Mm. You know, okay, let's take this opportunity now because I actually thought one of yours was going to be something to do with adventure, but I feel like maybe that kind of falls into the passion category because I don't know, I got this sensation of you just kind of like going headfirst into things. That fire energy is like, I'm just going to go there. That's leading me there. I'm just going to go there. And yeah, because I wanted to talk about your experience with climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, or I suppose this goes back to like going all in and just leaning into different things that kind of cross your path. So what made you want to go on that particular adventure and how was the experience?
Oof. I mean, to speak to your first point, adventure was actually one of my values a couple months ago.
Mm.
And there was something about it that didn't feel fully in my, like, embodied. Like,
Okay.
oh, it feels like it's a bit separate. Like, it's adventure. It's this thing that happens over there. It's like, what's the thing that drives adventure? Oh, what am I passionate about? Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't logically think it through until you mentioned it, but yeah, I feel the same way. I think passion's the thing
Mm.
that fuels adventure. Adventure's just the outcome.
Mm.
But yeah. Uh, oh, so I didn't plan on going to Mount Kilimanjaro this year, and I think the thing that I really learned about even just the process of it coming into my sphere is it started with a really powerful invitation from a good friend of mine, Jamin. And
Mm.
Jamin and I first met when we worked at Man Cave together back in the early days. And I actually took over his role as head of programs in 2018 so he could start mountains and marathons, which was then the
Mm.
business he was inviting me to go tour with or go on this
Yeah,
retreat with. So it was quite a full circle moment for us. And
definitely.
yeah, I had been through a process earlier this year of, yeah, moving through a lot of letting go with work and relationship. And he offered this invitation. He said, I'd love you to come climb Mount Kilimanjaro with me. And to be honest with you, I'd had a few visions of being in Africa at some point. I'd had this lion energy had started to come into my life,
Mm.
kind of caught me off guard. And then this powerful invitation came in from Jamin. And I looked at my year and I thought, this is something I do with how I try and make choices as well. I play out different timelines. So Timeline A. Okay, I don't choose Kili. What do I do? What's my year? What does my year feel like? Oh, it feels pretty dull and a little bit like a vacuum. Okay, I choose Kili, but I'm gonna have to hustle to make it happen. How does that feel? Oh, that's exciting. Okay, my body's
Yeah.
feeling good about that. Naturally, there's some stuff that comes up. Okay, cool. What's the choice when I'm sitting in my rocking chair and when I'm 90 that I'm gonna look back on and go, that was a good choice. So I said yes to it because I really wanted something to focus my year on, and I really wanted something that's going to make me uncomfortable and push me out of my comfort zone. Classic. But I also wanted to really connect to the African spirit and to feel like in some ways it was like going home to the motherland and going back to this place where the human spirit and the animal spirit still feel really alive. So that was the first part. Climbing Kili, I packed up my whole life back in Australia before I got on the plane. It was a mad rush. I also ran and then attended 2 retreats before getting on the plane. So by the time I got on the plane and landed in Africa, I was cooked. We hadn't even started hiking. And we landed at the retreat center, and there were 19 other brave people from around the world, from 17 years of age to 73 years of age, all climbing together. And we spent 2 days preparing and talking about our intention and getting our gear ready. And I was just actually really relieved to finally get on the mountain. And what I really loved about how they ran it was every day had a different theme. So that theme then framed the conversations we had. The altitude was okay for the first few days until day 3, when we went up to 4,600 meters. We went from 3,600 meters to 4,600 meters within 3 hours, and we had the silliest lunch ever, Mix. Like, one of the boys was white and throwing up in the corner. Two of the women were just having the best time because they felt amazing and they were watching everyone else feel like crap. I was feeling exhausted and tired, so I decided to meditate in the middle of the lunch tent after we'd eaten. And, for anyone that knows Vedic meditation, I just like fully conked out.
Yeah.
But I was in the middle, so everyone was taking photos of me and making funny faces and all
I've
this
seen
stuff.
a photo of this.
You seen a photo, yeah. I came out. I told everyone I'd been meditating, but they didn't believe me. So we then went back down, and then we went up, and from there to the summit. And the best thing was every night we came to the camps, the porters. We had 20 people climbing, and we had 70 porters and guides with us, taking all our gear to every single campsite. But the tour company, we did it with Africa Visa. They're a really ethical tour company, so everyone was getting paid well. So it was just a really good collective energy.
Yeah.
And then we get into each camp each night, and all the porters and guides would sing these amazing songs for us. So that was definitely a highlight. And yeah, summit night was out of this world. The sky was clear. We got up at 10 p.m. We started walking at 11 p.m. under headlights, and it was just slowly, slowly. And yeah, at about 3 a.m. the moon came up over the horizon, and it was this golden cup moon. And we were just watching the world turning around us as the stars were moving, and then eventually, around 3-4 a.m. people started to get pretty sick. There was a few that were throwing up and a few that were just really unwell. Something really weird happened for me, where I'm like, okay, trudging along and just in my own space. And then I was sort of talking to the mountain and saying, where am I at? And how am I going here? And do you have any messages for me? And she just said back to me, she's like, you don't have to pretend you're suffering. You're stronger than you realize. Whoa. I'm pretending I'm suffering. And then I just had this feeling of my chest opening up and standing taller. I'm like, I'm good. I feel great. And eventually got to the summit a few hours later, and Jamin looked at me. He's like, dude, you seem like you're doing great. I was like, I'm doing great. Now, of course, I've stayed humble because I've had altitude sickness before and it is not fun. But yeah, it was pretty amazing, and went through my own process of grieving some things at the top of the mountain. And top of Kili is called Uhuru Peak, which in Swahili means freedom. And so the question was put to us: what are you letting go of, or what are you claiming to step into freedom? which I could feel the potency of as I approached. So yeah, we all got up there bar one of us, and then made our way back down over the next day and a half, 2 days, and had a reintegration process back at the retreat center. And I'm really excited because I'm going to go back next year, but invite some clients along with me. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience, the whole thing. And I mean, you know how these things go. It unfolded in really unexpected ways as well.
But so much there for you.
So much. And I think the thing I kept asking myself is, why am I here? You know, what's brought me here? And I don't remember if I said this at the start of the conversation or separately to you, but eventually I got back to the retreat center, and I kind of had this moment back at the retreat center that was really real. I'm like, I don't feel complete. I don't feel like I've climbed Kili, haven't found any answers. Like, screw this. I'm angry. I haven't found salvation. And I had this moment. I looked in the mirror and I looked at myself. I was like, dude, you can come all the way to Africa, but you can't run from yourself.
Yeah.
So it's time to look at some things. And the irony of it is that it was in the bathroom after the whole summit had ended where probably the biggest penny dropped for me. And that's when I started leaning more into, okay, well, where I'm at in life right now, what do I need to feel through? And it was like this sweet surrender into the process. So yeah, these things, you know, there's that saying I really love. It's like you never get what you want, you often get what you need. And I feel like with big experiences like that, it's like you get what you need to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't always come in the
way.
It's
often counterintuitive.
Totally. And it doesn't come in the way that you kind of thought it might, you know? And that, again, is just, I think, more so the intellect, you know, getting in the way, wanting it to kind of all be nice and packaged up and delivered in a way that, you know, makes the most sense at the right time.
Agreed.
All of that. I really like what you said about that slowly, slowly. That's such a theme for me, I think, at the moment. And is requiring surrender from me. So yeah, I love that. And I have to say, I've been to South Africa, and that is totally the sensation of like a return to the motherland of, you know, in a sense. There is something so special about Africa.
Yeah. I was able to go on safari afterwards as well, and there was just something about the Serengeti and the expansiveness of it. But then also, you know, being in touch with and witnessing the jungle and the natural order of life. And I'm not going to get all Pixar or Disney on you, like with all these storylines, or obviously Lion King's awesome. But
obviously
it was amazing. Obviously, it was amazing to like see it and to be a part of it and to go, okay, cool. This is what life is like. I wonder how long I'd last out here. But yeah, there's something about like seeing the real, like, Mother Nature, you know, with the time
That's
and
what I was
space.
going to say. It's this like real, it's this real visceral experience with nature. And you are literally just there kind of witnessing it all, you know, you're like literally sitting back, you know, because yeah, we did a safari as well and had that same experience. You're like literally just sitting back and just watching it all unfold. Amazing. So there's still a couple of things I want to get into, but I would love for you to speak about the work that you're doing now with Another Way and what your mission is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this idea of Another Way came through about a year or two ago, and it was when I was going through a period of really questioning everything I'd chosen in my life. I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed one day and just this question just dropped in. It was like, there's got to be another way. Like this way I'm going can't be the only way to live my life. And so then spent the next few years going, okay, well, what is the way? Well, the way is whatever feels most true for myself. So Another Way, that the genesis of Another Way was really from my own journey, but the intention of it is to provide a space for people to truly choose their true path, their authentic self, and for them to come home into their bodies and to really arrive in the present moment. And the reason it's not the way or the new way and it's another way is because it's actually just trying to open up this field of possibilities energetically and literally, and provide a question or a prompt to someone to consider, well, is there another way? And the mission of it for me is really to create a generation of embodied leaders across the world, and to create a generation of leaders. And when I say leaders, I'm not talking about anyone in position. I'm just talking about someone that wants to be a true leader, is fully aligned with their values, their mission, their vision, their purpose, and is fully coming from a place of service in their life. And is really, at the essence of it, wanting to move from being a consumer or a contributor to a creator. I genuinely think outside of music or art, we're all creators. This concept I heard about in the spiritual community for years, and I was like, what do you mean? I don't get it. All it is you're drawing on the inner wellspring, the inner fire of this part of our consciousness or our soul that is able to create new things. Yeah. And you're creating another way, you're creating a new way because it's actually your way. No one else could do it. And I had the classic, I think you went on this journey as well with your business, I had the classic thing of going, oh, but surely everyone else is seeing this, right? I can't be the only one. Well, maybe, but there's probably a reason you're seeing it. It's because you're meant to do something with it. Yeah. And eventually, if you, I think, reflect on it enough, actually the biggest responsibility we have is to do the work we need to do to fully express our gifts and talents, and to hold back ourselves from our community or our people or the world, I think is one of the greatest shames for anyone. But obviously it takes work and commitment, and I also don't have any judgment for anyone that is happy just, going along with the way that they've always known and going that direction as well.
Because that's probably their soul's journey.
Exactly. We're all playing our own role collectively. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you are someone who is a bit of a master at building community, micro communities, lots of different communities all over the world. And, I think that plays a huge role in just our overall well-being in general. But obviously I speak about this a lot, in particular with women. But I would love, I would love for you to share what community means to you and how it impacts your life.
I mean, the first thing I'll say about this is I did not appreciate the value of community a few years ago. And the main reason for that was I was trying to do it all by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all good. I don't need you guys.
Yeah.
And then it took until last year of having a series of panic attacks and breakdowns where I didn't have any resources mentally. And I'm like, I need help. I need help beyond my family. I need help from my community. And I was getting, professional help as well. But I then really understood what it meant to be held by and supported by community, and really started to understand this exchange of fully asking for support and fully receiving support, and the gift of being asked to give and that other person fully receiving, and the great shame when the other person doesn't fully receive or the other person doesn't fully give. It's like there's something left on the table. It's just not right. So community for me, I mean, at the root of it for me, common unity. What are we coming together for? What's the unifying thing that's bringing us together? And then beyond that, recognizing that, everyone has different aspects of themselves that is medicine for each other, that makes that community perfect in some way, shape or form. I've been through some pretty challenging conversations over the years in community. And I've had moments, I had a moment a year or two ago where I was running a training for a group of guys and we were talking about relationships and commitment. and I'd shared part of my story, and that triggered one of the guys. And he was like, I feel like I need to step out. Like, this is uncomfortable. Can I have a chat to you, Matt, privately? And one of the other guys, I was about to say, yeah, sure, we can jump outside. One of the other guys jumped in and said, hey, I understand you're uncomfortable, but would you be okay sharing with us? So where are you at? And over the next hour, we just had this amazing conversation that was medicine for everyone in the space. Because one, he was willing to be vulnerable. Two, there was someone else willing to hold him accountable in a loving way. And then we all benefited from this, moving through this process together. So I think when there's a really strong community and the common unity, you're able to move through things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to personally, but also new things as well. So I appreciate what you said. I hadn't really reflected on building community or being a part of community, but when I feel through it, I'm really lucky. Like, even while I'm here in LA at the moment, I've even been able to tap into community while I've been here, and there's something so medicinal about being in community. Yeah, we can't do it alone.
No, amen. And I think vulnerability too, like for me, having a very similar experience, and I think we just like kind of taught this, this self-insulation. I'm good. I've like got this, down pat. I'm fine. I don't need anybody else. Until you do, until there is no other way. But yeah, I think having that vulnerability and being able to say, like, I need help or I need support in some way, or reaching out to someone, I think, like you were talking about, having difficult conversations, having someone that can reflect things back to you, knowing that they're coming from a place of love. Like, I would have to say that's one of, I think, the reasons I've really appreciated our friendship, especially in this last year, is because I feel like I reached out to you at a time where I knew you would reflect some things back to me that I needed to hear. And so I think it's really easy to obviously, stay comfortable even in our connections and our friendships, and not necessarily want to engage in those difficult conversations or have someone ask questions or reflect things back to us that make us go, oh, okay, now I have to think about that or face that or, deal with that. What is going on there? What is this about? And, you've been a big part of this journey for me, like reclaiming and embodying what it means for me to be a nourished woman, and some of the things that you reflected back to me way back in like March when we started really, significantly voice noting each other, are still with me all the time. So I think that's key as well. It's being able to be vulnerable, and it's being okay with the fact that sometimes in our friendships and in our, any interpersonal relationships and in community, people are going to reflect things back to us and say things that we need to hear. That is for us,
Yeah, exactly. There's we become mirrors for each other, right? Because even as we started to really deepen in our friendship and connection through this vulnerability and being really honest with each other, I was able to support you, reflect stuff back, especially from the masculine lens as well. And then I was also able, through that process, able to learn heaps about things I didn't maybe realize I knew, but also just learning from you about what you were navigating. And that was also a gift. And that doesn't happen if there's not initial sharing of it. But I also think the other thing I really appreciate about what we've been able to benefit from is being able to have really authentic sharing between a man and a woman that aren't in relationship. And I do really believe in men's work and women's work, and that still being a really important part of the tribe and the community. But I also do really believe in having, the ability to counsel someone that's not your partner, that is the opposite sex, if you're in a heterosexual relationship or in that dynamic, to understand where things are at. And then I'm not sure how we did it. I think it was actually just come down to a series of me asking you maybe like, how do you want me to respond to this? Or what do you need from this? Or can I be direct with you? And you giving permission for that, where I was able to, I guess, be more direct. And I think the tipping point for me with that time in our friendship as well was, you know what it was? I remember driving my car and I received one of your voice notes and I felt into what is of greatest service to Mika right now and to
Mm.
your whole family and friends and everyone
Yeah.
around you. What's the greatest service to her right now? And my gut started saying stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't want to say that. Oh, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna be hard to hear. That's gonna be hard to say. I don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
that person. And then I remember having this experience of going, well, I actually owe it to you to say this stuff
Yeah.
because if I don't, someone else might not. But also, if I hold that stuff back and I feel like it is true, then I
Well, then
sell
you're
us
not
both really
speaking the
short.
truth. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And it was, oh man, I remember I sent you one voice note and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be really direct with her here in a loving way. And it took you about 24 hours to get back. And I'm sitting there going, oh, was it too much? I don't know. um, but yeah, it was also like, it's a real, it's been a real learning for me and a real gift to learn how to share that stuff with you and with a woman in a way that it
Mm.
makes a woman feel safe still. Because the
Mm.
way that I communicate with men, we just cut straight through, and actually that's my preferred communication method. It is for a lot of men. For women, that actually that way is like so unsafe and often
Mm.
leaves women not feeling really met at all. So that was a really big learning for me in our
Mm.
communication process as well.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, and I think it's a rare thing as well. Like, I think even in some of our intimate relationships, I know obviously having friends tell me this and kind of, even people I've worked with and, that they don't feel like they're able to communicate in that way or receive in that way from a man. So it's something that I really value and has been very enlightening for me as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. And I think the thing I've learned about it is I can only meet my partner to the depth that I've met myself. And
Mm.
so if I'm going to focus on one thing, I'm just going to keep meeting myself at a deeper and deeper level. And I'm going to get the support of my mates or people around me to help me go deeper and to hold a container that allows me to fully meet myself and meet all these parts of me that are really scared or going through their own process so that I can then fully show up more fully in a relationship. And
Yeah.
it's a real gift when you can do it because
Mm.
I feel like I've been able to access levels of intimacy, not just physical, like just intimacy in general in
Yeah.
an intimate relationship where it just has this glisten to it. You're like, oh, well, we're both really here right now. This feels pretty great.
Mm.
But that's had to come with first, like a deepening of connection to self.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm
And
gonna
you've been
finish.
through that process as well, by the way. So
Oh God, yeah, absolutely,
you-
absolutely. And when you were touching on something earlier, when you spoke about oh, um, like the judgment that can arise, and I thought like it just made me reflect that I think a lot of my process has been like letting go of my own judgments, and yeah, that's been huge for me, I think. And probably like it's a work in progress. It
yeah,
still feels a little alive for me as well.
yeah, me too. One of my favorite. This is a bit off script, not off script because I didn't plan this, but like one of my favorite things to do with people that are judging themselves is like actually to get them to a point of realizing that part of them actually really gets a lot of pleasure from it.
Mm.
There's this book and practice called existential kink, which I've
Yep.
discovered early this year. And when I got introduced to it, it made me angry because I felt devalidated in my experience. But when I read the book and then started to work with it, I'm like, oh, whoa, like this is a whole thing. And one of the main premises of the book is like some like everything's in our life because we brought it in, and
Mm-hmm.
some sick dark part of us is actually getting off on our suffering. And so if we can admit that part of us is getting off on our suffering, then we can go, oh, part of me actually loves beating myself up. It feels really good because then I get to be in victim or like whatever. And like, then you can start to actually transmute it from pain into pleasure and from suffering into pleasure. And then it loses its stronghold.
Yeah.
And then you're able to laugh about it and go, oh man, oh, I can't hide behind this anymore. And there's a whole other process that comes with existential kink that's pretty amazing.
I was gonna say that's a part 2 of the podcast.
That's a part 2. That might need a content warning, that one. It's not naughty, but like it does go into sacred sexuality and pleasure and like how that actually moves through the body. So yeah, it's maybe a bit off tangent for this one.
For this particular one. We can touch on that another time, or we can start a book club.
Yes. Great book for a book club.
Great book for a book club. I want to talk a little bit about your journey with food, because I know that it's changed a little bit over the last few years. I think at one point, I know you were vegetarian. Were you vegan at another point?
2 weeks I tried it. That was it.
Yep. Okay. I want to know, like, what's that? What has your journey with food been like, and like, where are you at now with it?
Yeah, I mean, it is ever evolving, my journey with food. Food is such a mirror for me of my emotional process as well.
Same.
I'm like, oh, eating a cookie. What am I avoiding feeling?
I mean, sometimes cookies are just really nice.
Yeah. Sometimes when you have one, but if you have multiple, then it's probably something you're avoiding.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah. My journey with food. So early days, like I remember I went through this whole process of when I was a teenager, I was trying to play elite sport and I was overweight and I looked really closely at my diet and, I took out things like soft drink and other things that I knew were not good for me. And that was in processed carbohydrates and chips and stuff. And that was a shift as a 16-year-old and I lost 5 kilos straight away. Then, I went to Nepal, did Everest Base Camp, had 2 weeks of being vegetarian while I was trekking. I went, oh, this feels pretty good. My body's responding well to this. Had 3 years of being vegetarian, 2 weeks of being vegan. It was an education in just how many things have animal products in them. That was the main bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy, right? And then more recently, as I've done deeper work with my body and doing somatic therapy, internal family systems therapy, plant medicine space, whoa, like I've done a number of detoxes in preparation for those different retreats and experiences. And then I've started to become way more attuned to what my body is asking for. And the way I relate to my body is I relate to my body as a she. And so I relate to her. And I relate to her as Mother Nature and this beautiful gift I've been given to sit in for however many years. So now I've started to relate to my body in a very different way. And I'll say to her, what do you need? Or if I'm in full service to you, what do you need today? And I am by no means perfect with this. I don't always listen because sometimes yummy things taste yummy. It's not actually what my body wants. But now it's, I really like this word nourishing that you've brought into your business and world, because when I feel through how I want to feel, it's nourished. It's this feeling of wholeness, completeness. And, the other day, for example, confession time, I think I had an ice cream and then 2 cookies afterwards. And I sat there afterwards going, what just happened? Like, well, how do we get here? And then I went out an hour or 2 later and I went, I'm hungry again. Oh, I haven't had any real food.
Yeah.
But the problem is I'm now full. So, yeah.
But not satiated.
Not satiated, exactly. And there's a real difference. But you have to be connected to really innately connected to your body, I think, to pick up on this stuff.
Totally.
And yeah, it's the same with things like alcohol and caffeine. I've massively reduced my alcohol intake because I'll drink it now and just like, oh, that's ethanol. Like that doesn't taste good in my body.
Yeah.
And the same with caffeine. It like can feel it pick my heart rate up. Whereas I used to have 3 strong coffees a day. Now it's like 1 coffee a day is enough. And very much shifted. So I feel like it's much better, but I'm way out of practice with cooking wholesome meals. I'd be much happier, with a really clear distinction of what feels good. And I'm really glad I reintroduced meat back into my diet. My body really needed it. And yeah, I think I'm almost having to re-educate myself as an adult in this space as well.
Yeah. Same.
And that's why I'm glad you're in my life because you can help me with this stuff.
Definitely. I have a really... No, you go.
Okay, all I was going to say was, from emotional, psychological, somatic perspective, which is like really the space I work in, I think what's important is not to separate our body from our experience of life. The body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the great books written in the recent years, is true in the sense that our body is holding on to trauma or storing emotion. And if we don't move that emotion and we allow it to be stuck in the body because we don't transmute it through emotional expression or talking about it, whatever it is, then we'll push it down or suppress it whenever it is. So I think I know you know this, but I'm more saying it as a general, like to add into the philosophy, recognizing that food and nourishment of our body is very much a part of really, one, I think really serving our inner feminine, two, really serving our bodies so we can show up as our best selves. But three, we can't separate our emotional experience from our food and drinking experience. They're very much interrelated, in my opinion. Like this whole body is processing everything. So I think it's important to see it as a whole system.
Yes. This is, the holistic view. And I mean, you touched on it before when you were talking about the gut and its kind of infinite wisdom and, like a second brain. And I mean, I feel like we've only really scratched the surface of all of that anyway, in terms of the research to prove it. But yeah, I think we can see that, I think just in our kind of health crisis that we have across the world with chronic health issues and all of that, just how interconnected it all is and how much our guts can really suffer if we don't acknowledge that.
Yeah, agreed.
I wanted to ask you something that I ask everyone. It's just a little fun question to finish up, and that is, if you could only eat one thing, one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Oh,
It's
that is
hard.
a cruel question.
I know.
I mean, there's so many different ways I could answer this. I'll give you the one that, like, the thing that most satisfies me. It'd probably be, like, the inner teen in me wants to say it'd be like muesli with yogurt and bananas and strawberries and stuff, because that's delicious, and I can eat that any time of day. It's yum.
Yep.
But the one thing that I'm really passionate about, one of the things I'm really passionate about when it comes to food and finding the world's best, is fish tacos.
Ooh, good one.
So, like a good like chipotle aioli, sliced cabbage,
real
fresh
corn
coriander,
tortilla,
real corn tortilla,
salsa.
Salsa, whatever combination you want, slice
That
of
is a
lime.
very well balanced meal. I'm very proud of you. That choice.
Oh, so glad I got the tick of approval from you.
That is an aligned choice.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Yum, that's such a good answer. So many people have gone for things that feel really nostalgic, which I love as well.
Well, I'm definitely have an emotional attachment to fish tacos. I'll eat them, love them. Yeah, they've got some special memories attached to them as well.
I love that. Well, I mean, I feel like I could keep talking to you forever, but we're going to end it here. And I just wanted to say thank you, because I have no doubt there's going to be a lot of women listening to this, and just all the kind of things that we've discussed are so relevant when it comes to what I believe in, you know, with a nourished woman. But to hear it from a man, I think is really important. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for showing up in your truth and sharing it with us. And I'm going to obviously share all the ways people can find you. Is there anything else you want to say?
Thanks for your lovely words and for having me on. And yeah, I think like part of me is jealous that it's the nourished woman and it's focused on female entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm like, what do you mean I don't get to be a part of this thing? It sounds great.
This whole time I'm like, wait, I need to change. Like maybe it's like a nourished person, or
It's not the same. I think we'll stick
it's not the
with the
same.
nourished woman for now. We can work out something in the future. That's what
Yeah,
we're gonna do. We're gonna work on some collabs.
you will.
Yeah, I just want to say, like especially to your community, some that I know, some that I don't. Yeah, I really appreciate you providing me with the opportunity and the platform to share some of this stuff, and you know, I really mean it when I say that I feel like we're all in this together, and we need to work collectively to solve some of this stuff, and I do really think there is hope. I do think it's solvable, but there is a return to village, a return to community, a return to body, a return to home, a return to self that's really necessary, a real big homecoming for us to find another way, move through what's next, and really like get back to the place that I think we're all here for, which is to lead really fulfilling and satisfying lives and nourishing lives, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear your feedback on this episode. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out and let me know what you think. Your feedback is so important to me, especially as I head into planning for season 2. I would love to know what your thoughts are on the conversations I've been having and what it is you might want to hear a little bit more of. If you would like to connect with Matt, I have shared all the relevant links in the show notes. I know he would love to hear from anybody who's listened and anything that might have resonated with you. Once again, just a big thank you for listening and a big welcome back to 2024. I'm very excited about this year. I'm very excited to finish season 1 and to move into the planning and recording of season 2. I'll be with you again next week. Take care of yourself. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Nourished Woman. I hope something in this conversation resonated with you, and if so, please share it with a friend. You can hit follow or write a review or simply share on social media. It would be amazing. Thank you so much again for listening. Until next time, take care of yourself.